Welcome to yet another fabulous Linux Zoo crew, and today on the Zoo, we are talking desktop wars. Last week, we talked about hopping between Linux distros, and we figured why not talk about hopping between window managers and desktop environments. And everybody on my panel here, of course, has their favorites that they would like to discuss on today's show. Before we start, I'd like to share with you a few words from our founder, Voltam.
Hi, I'm Voltam, founder of the Linux distro community. The Linux distro community is a place for people to hang out and discuss Linux, Linux distros, software, and open source. The Linux distro community is a community funded by its members for its members. We are a friendly, welcoming community that encourages people who use Linux operating systems and software to share their passion and knowledge with other people. We believe that when people share information freely, everyone benefits. We'd love to see you become a part of the Linux distro community. You can voice chat with us on Mumble or text chat with us in IRC. Head over to linuxdistrocommunity.com for details. Join in today in the sharing of knowledge and the freedom that a Linux operating system gives people. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Voltam. And at this time, I would like to hand the mic over to LectroLinux, who will be our co-host on today's show, and he will introduce all of our guest speakers.
Thank you for that, Spatry. Today in alphabetical order we have Armageddon, we have C. Smith, we have Crunchy, we have Pingcasts, we also have our special guest Pinguy, we have Setkeh, and we have the Linux guy.
Welcome, one and all. And first, I'd like to start with Armageddon. He is using the awesome, is that a window manager or tiling window manager? Please tell us a little bit about Awesome. What are its advantages? And then afterwards, tell us a little bit about some of the other desktops you have used.
Hello everyone, and thank you, Spatry. Awesome is the kind of window manager which is both tiling and floating window manager, so you can configure it the way you want. You can configure each tag to be either tiling, non-tiling. The advantages of it is that it is configured in a programming language, not a text file. So basically, if you want to create a widget, you just write the widget in the configuration file in the Lua program, and then you have a widget. It's very easy to do that. It is so configurable that you can specify each application to open in which tag to be in which layout. Layout is basically to be let's say a floating layout or a tiling layout, what kind of tiling layout, a full screen layout, stuff like that. You can configure it pretty much to do anything you want. It has a tray icon, the system tray by default. So basically when I went through the whole list of window managers, I chose this one because of its advantages to me personally. And I've been using it for over a year now, and I've configured it the way I want and I like. When I first started using Linux, I was using, of course, Gnome 2, as everyone. I loved Gnome 2 and I still love it. And then
yes.
When Gnome 3 came out, I liked it. I tried it and I liked it, but I didn't know what KDE was, so I moved to KDE for a while. And then I thought, you know what, those two are great and perfect, but they give you everything, a bunch of everything together, and I want something that I would like to choose each part of it. So that's why I started checking the Windows managers, and then I chose my window manager, and then from there up you only have a window manager, and then you can choose whatever file manager you want, whatever browser you want, whatever everything you want.
Now let me ask you, Armageddon, is configuring the awesome window manager easy for a beginner to digest, or is this something that's a little bit geekier?
It might be hard at first to get an idea of what Lua is. For example, you don't need to know Lua. I personally do not know Lua enough to code an application, for example, but I've been working with the Lua configuration file for a while and then reading the wiki pages, and I got an idea of what I need to do and how can I do that in Lua. Lua is really close to C, so if someone knows C, it might help a lot with that. But it doesn't specifically, you don't specifically need to know a programming language or Lua in specific to be able to configure it. You just need to read a lot and test a lot and test your configuration, and you can get whatever you want through the wiki pages. You can copy things from the wiki pages which they offer. You can then, if you know a bit more, you can read the libraries offered by by the awesome window manager team, and then you can use those to create your widgets and stuff like that. I mean, it can be hard. I see how it can be hard, but if you use it for a while and then you get used to it, you don't find it that hard.
All right. Well, it sounds like that you have a nice environment set up there. It appears that now Setkeh also uses Awesome as well. Tell us a little bit about that, Setkeh.
Okay, so I was looking for a tiling window manager many moons ago, and I come across WMII, which is pretty fast. It's very lightweight. It's smaller than Awesome, and it's almost entirely configurable through Bash and Dash. So it makes the first jump to programming languages as well, not so much programming languages, but scripting languages as a configuration file for window managers incredibly easy, because it's exactly the same sort of stuff you type into your terminal every day. But it also has its limitations, because Bash is a very limited scripting language. So I moved to, after much poking and prodding from PDQ and Armageddon, moved to Awesome, so that I had a little bit more flexibility. Like Armageddon says, it's a mixture of a tiling window manager along with a floating window manager. So by floating, I mean like OpenBox or something like that. And it's incredibly fast and really light. As far as WMII and Awesome goes, there's really not too much between them as far as lightweight goes. I mean, as soon as I boot up my machine and launch either of them, I'm still sitting under 100 megabytes of RAM usage. So they're incredibly light and super configurable. Once you get over that first initial step, trying to learn how to configure using scripting languages, that's probably the biggest step with most tiling window managers.
All right, and Pinguy, you had a question on Awesome. Could you please share that with us?
Yeah, just out of curiosity, like Awesome, like obviously, like it is awesome. It's very lightweight, very customizable, and it's like super lightweight. I can see the benefits of that for like things like mobile devices and that. But I mean, like in today's sort of like computer environment, where like most computers have like a quad-core processor, 4 gigs of RAM. I mean, like fairly high-end computers are fairly cheap now. And I'm thinking, what place Awesome have in today's market?
Do you want to take that one, Setkeh?
Yeah, well, I have, in my workstation, I have a quad-core AMD FX 4100 with 4 virtual cores on top of its quad-core capabilities, and I have 16 gig of RAM. So my system is definitely up there along, some of the better ones that you could possibly buy. And it's not so much that I'm worried about resource usage, because with those kind of specs I don't have to be. But it's still nice to be able to, reload Awesome. To edit the config and reload Awesome literally takes seconds. Or making small minor adjustments also just takes a couple of seconds. Executing programs or, working around in terminals, and having the ability for the tabs and opening things in, like locking it down in the config to open specific things in a specific tab. So I've got 9 tabs at the moment, and so I've got 1 for Chrome, and it doesn't matter what tab I'm in. If I open Chrome, it will automatically go to the number 3 tab, which is my Chrome tab. So I don't have massive amounts of desktop clutter. Everything gets organized very sanely, and it doesn't, it's responsive, very quick.
All right, fair enough. Armageddon, did you want to share any thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. I don't have a very powerful laptop, but again, resources, I do have 4 gigs of RAM and a dual core CPU, so resources is not a big deal for me. But for example, the idea of me being able to use the file manager I want and configure it into Awesome, the ability to configure shortcuts to open applications and open them specifically in specific tags. So whenever I run my Awesome, I can go and open a whole bunch of applications, and each one will open in its own tag. I know that this tag is for this application, that tag is for that application, and everything is in its place. The tiling stuff depends on what tag I'm using. If I'm using the IRC tag, I have it in tiling mode, and my instant message in another way of tiling mode. And I really like the Vim kind of way, the keyboard oriented kind of way. So if I want stuff, I prefer to use the keyboard over using the mouse, because the mixture of mouse and keyboard it's a loss of time. And I prefer to use the keyboard at all times to do anything I want. I can move windows, make them bigger, smaller, everything with the keyboard. I don't need to use a mouse in my whole system.
C. Smith.
Yeah, I have a question for Armageddon. By tags, is that similar to what window managers and desktop environments would use for just resizing windows, or am I not getting that correct?
Well, we call tags in Awesome. I'm not sure about other window managers, but I mean, in Awesome, what we call tags is basically what the desktop environment people call workspaces.
Ah, so kind of like what you could do with GNOME 3 if you wanted.
Well, if you have GNOME 3, let's say, but no, you can't talk about GNOME 3 because GNOME 3 adds workspaces and deletes them on the basis of how many you're using, and if you're using new stuff. Let's talk about, if you go back to GNOME 2, for example, you can specify a bunch of workspaces, like 4 from the beginning. And in Awesome, let's say if you have 4, you can specify that the email client will only open in the 4th one. So you know you need to go to the 4th one to check your emails. And you can specify the first one to be for Firefox, and Firefox will always open in the first one.
All right. Now, I've seen some screenshots of Awesome, okay, and really it didn't look that appealing to me. I even tried to install it in Archbang when I first made that switch to Arch, but I couldn't seem to get it working right. Eventually, I will explore that in the future because I understand a lot of people get a lot of great use out of it. Personally, I still like that really nice, comfy GUI interface. And speaking of comfy GUI interfaces, C. Smith uses KDE as his main desktop. C. Smith, please tell me a little bit about KDE and why you chose it as your main desktop.
Well, KDE is, in a sense, built on the Qt libraries. So it does have some good bases. Well, the Qt libraries also are used in tandem with KDE libs. But the reason I use it, I'm going to say user preference. It fit what I needed to do most, and that's really the only reason I use it, aside from the fact that it looks nice. I have tried GNOME and XFCE, but both really didn't fit exactly what I do every day, so KDE does, and that's all I need to say.
Now, interestingly enough, I use a number of components of KDE in my system. And I like some components, but I do not really care for KDE as a whole, mostly because I'm running a single core processor myself, and I feel that it is a little bit heavy. But some of its components, I use Dolphin, for instance. I use KDE Live for all of my video editing, and then a few other little things mixed in between. And I think they have some good applications in KDE, but as a whole, not really my thing. Now, Crunchy Linux here, he actually uses another desktop environment that I use all the time, and this is OpenBox. Please tell us a little bit about that, Crunchy.
Well, OpenBox is not a desktop environment, it's a window manager. But the reason I use it is because I just feel like it's so customizable and it's so lightweight, and you can just have it be what you want to be. You can make it look completely different, or you could just use the right-click menus that are already pre-built into OpenBox to navigate around.
Okay, and what other environments have you tried out?
I've tried out all the main desktop environments. I've also tried out Joe's Window Manager and Flexbox. I just always find myself always going back to OpenBox. Joe's Window Manager is very nice, but it's just not what I need.
All right, now it took me a while to get used to it actually took me a while to get used to OpenBox, and it finally grew on me, and now I'm using it all the time. Pin Guy.
Yeah, sorry, Crunchy, like, saying you like that desktop environment. I'm just wondering, what's the difference between that and, let's say, like a lightweight desktop environment, XD, sorry, what is it, XD? No,
Well, LXDE uses OpenBox as its window manager. It's what gives it the the closed stuff, but it also does piles its own stuff on as well. So you still are using or OpenBox from what I understand, but it also has its own little tweaks.
yeah, because like I know that Crunchbox is like they swear by it. They say that it's like the best desktop environment going. Like me personally, I've never actually used it personally, but it's been something I've been kind of interested in, and like I would be interested to hear like from people that actually use it on a daily basis, like how good it is.
All right, and LectroLinux uses Cinnamon. Tell us about it.
Yeah, for months and years near enough, I've been using Unity. I mean, I've always ended up going back to Ubuntu. And I don't know, I just thought I'd go back to Cinnamon. Its compositing works well. You don't need to worry about Xorg drive, the compos effects and stuff like that. I know they're great and all, but I don't know, sometimes I have conflicts with like full screen windows and stuff like that. I know half the time it's just a matter of configuring it right, but I just wanted something that looked nice straight out the box. I mean, I've used Cinnamon as well. I don't know, it's just grown on me really.
And I had a look at Cinnamon myself, and actually I installed that in Archbang in one of my episodes. And I thought that was really nice that the community actually stepped up, in this case, Linux Mint. And they put together a nice little environment to give users that era of familiarity that they needed. As a lot of people really didn't care for how Unity was shaping up, and a number of people didn't really care for Gnome either. Now, both of those have matured, though. Unity is working a lot better now that it's had a chance to mature, and even Gnome 3 is looking really nice as well. But I think at the end of the day, it's up to the end user to decide which, environment or window manager, and the thing is, I get so confused with window manager or desktop environment, that sort of thing. It causes this little gray cloud of confusion over my head here, and that sort of thing. So, but Ping Guy, why don't you share a little bit with us on Cinnamon?
Cinnamon, like it's a brilliant idea, but the thing is, they're actually building on what's already been actually. Because the thing is, Cinnamon is a GNOME shell layer. That's all it is. It's like it's still GNOME. Instead of like using GNOME shell, because like GNOME 3 is the base, instead of using GNOME 3 as a base and using GNOME shell on top, use Cinnamon instead. The problem with Cinnamon is it's pretty much identical to GNOME shell. So anything they've done is they've incorporated a lot of add-ons that people have actually built and put it onto that. But I don't really understand the point or understand where someone's coming from and the need for it, because what they are doing can be completely done with GNOME shell. GNOME shell was designed from the get-go to be completely customizable, and GNOME and Cinnamon is built for GNOME shell, building it into Cinnamon. So I don't understand its place. That's where I place. I don't understand what it's doing or what it's trying to achieve.
Armageddon.
Cinnamon is a GNOME shell fork, so basically it is GNOME shell. But the whole idea of Cinnamon getting created from the Linux Mint community is that they had problems with the early GNOME shell releases where they didn't have any option given to them or the users to configure it the way the user wants if they don't know how to code stuff. So if you didn't know how to code, you can't configure GNOME shell the way you want. And they didn't like that idea at the beginning of the GNOME shell releases. So what they did basically is they took a fork of it and they gave the user more options to choose whatever he wants the panel to be, what he wants them to be like, and stuff like that. And that's how the whole thing started out.
The GNOME shell is so customizable. I mean, it's all JavaScript. It's basically exactly the same as Cinnamon, but all Cinnamon's done is basically incorporated it into their shell and it's kind of locked down because now all the new add-ons that are coming along for Gnome Shell do not work with them. So it's actually kind of a backward progression of what Shell is meant to be. Shell was designed from the get-go to be extremely customizable.
I think it's nice for beginners. It is user-friendly and not really hard for people to assimilate, but I also like what Cinnamon has brought to the table. I really like the customizations, but as Pinguy pointed out, Gnome 3 is definitely customizable. Now you can just point your web browser to their site, and from within your browser you can just click on some of these extensions and they install in your system immediately. And Pinguy already put the link up. That is https://extensions.gnome.org. You can go there and you can get all kinds of extensions to add to the functionality of Gnome 3. Thank you for sharing that with us. And Pingcasts, you use Fluxbox. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, it's a standalone window manager, not a full desktop environment, but it's still pretty featureful. So it comes with its own panel, its own run box, and it can change its own wallpaper, and its themes, they call them styles for Fluxbox, it can change those too, so it can do a lot right out of the box. Whereas if I were using something like OpenBox, I don't have a panel, I don't have a run box. They also have a good default menu structure in Fluxbox. It generates a menu, and it'll have a lot of applications in it, whereas OpenBox will not. And you can still get applications to add into the menu so that you have a list of applications installed. I find it very customizable. I can have workspaces on my panel, or not. I can have the clock. I can customize the format of the clock on the panel. I can have buttons that allow me to click to switch workspaces, click to switch windows. They have a tabbing functionality, so if I control left-click a window, I can drag it onto another window, and then it'll be one window, but it'll be tabbed, so you click on the tab and it switches to, let's say, Firefox, then I could click on the other tab and go back to the other window. So I could take something like Pigeon, Skype, XChat, and then tab them, and then I basically have an instant messaging window. To configure the keys, it's really easy. OpenBox runs off of XML code, so you have to type in XML. It's a bit easier with Fluxbox. Let's say I want to open Terminator. I put in the keys file mod 4, because that's what corresponds to the Windows key, space T. That's my customizer, or my key binding for the custom keybind. Colon, exec, and then Terminator, and that's it. That's what I need to put into the file, and it will launch it and run it. So it's easy to configure, very customizable. I can, like what Armageddon said with what was it, Awesome? I can control whether or not this is on all workspaces, or is it maximized, or what's going on here. I can customize the state of the application when it starts up. So it's customizable. I find it to be lightweight. It runs on my laptop. I still run it on my desktop because I like it, and it just, for me, it's been a really good window manager. It's lightweight, but it's still pretty out of the box, and it's very customizable.
How would you say that compares to OpenBox?
There are some advantages and disadvantages. In the OpenBox menu, you can run pipe menus, so I could execute a script, and then it could generate a menu. So when I used OpenBox, I had a script that would pull weather info from Google Weather, and it would display it in a menu. You can't do that in Fluxbox, but I could include other files in the menu. So to get my dynamic application menu, I have Menu Maker write to a different file so it doesn't overwrite the root file, and then I include that file under Applications, and I wind up with the customized applications menu, but it's not forcing me into the Menu Maker menu.
Well, I can say just in what you have been speaking about is in terms of Flexbox, I'm very interested in this, and I'm actually going to download this and have a look at it and see if and just do a comparison by myself. I'd like to see if maybe this is something that I can easily theme and maybe change it to my own liking. All right, let's go ahead and move on now. Pinguy OS, the latest release, uses GNOME 3, and Pinguy has been sharing a lot with the group on IRC, different little tips on getting the most out of it. He's been putting up links for getting the add-ons and customizations. Pinguy, is there anything else you want to share with everyone about GNOME 3?
Well, not really GNOME 3, but I will start off with that actually. GNOME 3, when it sort of moved on from GNOME 2.3, it was drastically different. It was a rewrite. So using it is completely different what people were used to before. But people saying that it's not as customizable, they are kind of wrong actually. This is actually more customizable. Like, GNOME Shell was built in mind to have add-ons. So anyone that knows a bit of JavaScript and that can build and produce an add-on for GNOME Shell. I mean, for example, like use PingOS for example. Like, if you use that compared to like vanilla GNOME Shell, it's completely different. It's not even slightly the same. But you know, with PingOS, you've got like a menu very similar to what you would see in what you would see in GNOME 3. It uses a pack, so I can't pronounce the word, but the menu is there, and then like got the axe menu. That's very, very much like the Mint menu. I mean, you can add things to it, and you can change the way it works. You can put docs on it. You know, it's quite customizable. But the thing is, it's very, very, very different to GNOME 2.3. I mean, you can't go to the panel and right-click on it and add something. It doesn't work like that. You have to get used to how it works now.
You know, and the thing is, in your operating system, you pretty much thought of everything in terms of customizing GNOME 3 so that beginners can find it intuitive. You've included Cardapio as the menu, which is, in my opinion, the best menu that you can get for your panel, and you've got everything set up nicely. So pretty much the newcomer who's trying out your distribution for the very first time has everything right at their fingertips, and it's easily accessible. And so you did an excellent job on that. And we always appreciate it when you come in on our channels and you discuss this and help other people with all these little tips and everything. Thank you so much for that. Okay, I'd like to next move on to the Linux guy. He is using Unity. Tell us about it.
Oh, Unity's very nice. It's come a long way since it was first ported into 11.04, and that's when I first started in Linux. I only have about 1 year of Linux experience, but Unity integrates very well with its programs now, and you know, has come a long way since then. I never really found it buggy when I was using 11.04, but mostly more. A lot of other people did in 11.04. It's very good for, you know, on Wikipedia. This may not be right, but I kind of believe it. But it says that Unity is kind of made for, you know, providing a desktop environment without any distractions, and that's what I've experienced. The only thing that you have is your Unity, is your GNOME panel, and your window. That's it. Other than the launcher that comes and pops up every time you go.
Pingcasts, tell me about your experience with Unity.
Oh yeah, I remember when I tried the 12.04 release. It was a lot better than the previous versions. I liked it. It was great. I found it very good for workflow. It was just, the way it was set up is just easy to get between workspaces and access applications quickly, and personally I liked it. I liked the, what did they call it? I think it was Quick List, something like that. You could, if you docked something onto the launcher, then you could actually, using the MyUnity tool, add additional commands to that docked app. So for instance, let's say I have Chromium docked to the launcher. I could add a command that launches the incognito, then when I right-click and bring up the menu, that's where the additional command is. I could click to launch Chromium and Incognito. That would be one example. So I found it to be very, very nice looking and very, very usable, very good for workflow.
All right, awesome. Okay, and Setkeh, do you have any final thoughts?
Well, I actually do get a lot of questions about tiling window managers a lot. And so, like, a lot of people don't understand the concept of a tiling window manager. Basically, you know, I use the tiling window manager because, like Armageddon says, it makes it so much easier to be able to just do everything from a keyboard instead of always having to, you know, type on a keyboard, then reach over to the mouse and do something else and whatever. It's not so bad on a laptop, but when you're sitting on a desktop for long hours, it gets a bit tedious. And a lot of people can't decide, or they don't know where to start when they're looking into moving on from a desktop environment, or, you know, their open box or something like that, their window manager, into a window manager that's tiling. And a lot of people get the misconception that DWM's easy, and it's really not, because every time you change something, you've got to recompile it, which can start becoming quite a bit of a pain. So I usually recommend, if you want to take the plunge into window managers, have a look at WMII or i3, which is based off WMII. And i3 started way back when WMII was pretty crappy, and it was around about, I think it was 250 lines of code or something like that. And it doesn't use the 9p file system protocol. I could talk about that all day, so I won't get into it. There's really good documentation on Suckless about the 9p protocol, and there's also a really good website. Well, the 9p website is really good for documentation as well. But WMII works fantastic these days. It has really come a very long way, and like I say, it can be configured in a lot of scripting languages, not just Bash. It can be done in Lua and Ruby and all sorts of other scripting languages. So it's a really good place to start before, especially if you don't know much about scripting and you know a little bit of Bash here and there and whatever. It's probably the best place to start because it's easy. And then when you're starting to get more comfortable a few months in or something like that, then you could step off into Awesome or DWM or something along those lines.
Oh, right. Thank you, Setkeh. And then, of course, everybody knows I'm using OpenBox, but I also love Compiz. I'm using it as a standalone. And I got to tell you, folks, I absolutely love Compiz as a standalone on my Arch system. I love it, especially when I'm just putzing around. I have different desktops that I can put my applications onto. I can stick my multimedia applications on one desktop. You know, I can move my mouse over to the corner of the screen and have all of my desktops show and reposition windows, doing page flips and all kinds of stuff. Don't have any flames or anything enabled or any of the other eye candies other than having my little cube cylinder kind of thing. Looks kind of cool, especially when I'm at the coffee shop and I have people peeking over my shoulder asking me what operating system I'm running, and it's great for showing off and that sort of thing. But mostly when I'm doing any of my editing, doing my video editing and putting together my shows and that sort of thing, most of the time I'm running OpenBox. I love it. I've got it customized to my liking, and believe it or not, Crunchy just stated that that Compiz uses a lot of RAM. That is not true. When it's running as a standalone, it really doesn't use that much, and I've noticed as a standalone itself, it's really not bogging down too many resources. So I think that is a good thing. All right. At this point, I'd like to go back through the list of everybody on our panel, and one thing, you know, I like to reach out to all of those beginners out there, and so I'm going to ask each of my panel members here, which desktop environment or window manager would you recommend to beginners? And we'll start with you, Armageddon.
Well, the first thing I would say that if you like desktop environment, if you like everything to be a bundle and everything to be easy and right there for you, just use desktop environments. Try Gnome, try XFCE, try KDE, but don't try LXDE because LXDE is on the middle ground of being a part of Window Manager and a part of sort of on top applications, but not everything is there. So you gotta do a lot of configuration. But if you want to plunge into the window manager world, you must have preferences. Let's say you want this, you want that. What I would say is there's a wiki page on the Arch Wiki that says comparison of tiling window managers, and I went through that with my preferences of a window manager, and I chose awesome from the whole list. So it says it's which language the window manager is written in, which configuration language you can configure it with. Does it have a system tray? Does it use dbus? Does it have a library? Does it have multiple monitor integration? Does it have is it still in maintenance? Stuff like that. Small stuff, big stuff. You get through the whole list and you start scratching out the window managers that doesn't seem for you, and then you get to a point where you choose which one you want.
All right, C. Smith, which one would you recommend to beginners?
I would recommend Cinnamon or Unity, mainly because everything is there and you just really don't have to install really anything.
Crunchy.
I would recommend KDE or Mate because because most people that are switching over are going to be switching over from Windows, and those are very Windows-like.
Lectro.
I'd say Mate or Gnome 3, maybe Gnome Shell.
Pingcasts.
Depends on the interface. I'd probably say if you can get the extensions, if that's not an issue, then Gnome Shell. I'm just worried that a vanilla Gnome Shell might confuse new users. So I'd say Gnome Shell with extensions, or perhaps I've never really used Cinnamon, but it looks like it has a very Windows-like interface, and odds are the user knows how to use Windows.
Pin Guy, what's your impression? Which desktop do you recommend for beginners? I know you're using Gnome 3 and you've already got it pre-configured.
Honestly, there is no good desktop for a new user. Anyone coming from Windows that wants to go to Linux needs to start from scratch, because the thing is, Linux is very different from Windows. Doesn't matter what desktop environment you use, you're going to have to relearn it. The thing is, when you relearn it, you get so many new benefits. For one, you get no viruses. You don't have to keep on running antivirus programs like once a week. You don't have to defrag it. But the thing is, there is no desktop environment that's identical to Windows. So the thing is, you need to sort of relearn it. From a point of view, what's the easiest? Probably going from there to from a Windows user to a new desktop environment. I would probably say skip Gnome Shell. It's kind of the future. It's what's going to happen. But for someone from Windows, I would probably say go for a Gnome 2.3 or Mate interface. So go for something like 11.4 or 10.04, no, 10.10 distro of Ubuntu, and look at that. That's what I would say.
Setkeh, which would you recommend to beginners?
I would probably recommend LXDE or XFCE as far as desktop environments go. But if you want to really step out there and have a bit of fun with a really lightweight window manager, I'd highly recommend OpenBox.
Linux Guy.
Well, I would recommend probably Unity. That's what I started out with about a year ago. It's been working for me well. It's great for beginners, the nice dash and all of that. It's a really great thing to start out with if you're new to Linux.
All right. A lot of great answers there, and I concur with Ping Guy. Yes, there is no identical experience to, from a Windows user switching over to Linux. There really is no identical experience to Windows. Zorin comes fairly close, as High6 mentioned on IRC. But the thing is, really, you're going to want to dig around and learn a few things, And the best way that I learned was making Google my friend, doing a lot of searching online, and getting the answers that I was looking for, because Linux definitely is not Windows. So there are different ways of doing things, and C. Smith pointed out that Windows users will be expecting to hunt down their updates where we don't really have to. We have an update manager of some sort in our Linux distributions where we can download all of our updates, and then we have our software centers and that sort of thing for getting packages and everything that we need. And this has been a wonderful discussion. I want to thank Armageddon, C. Smith, Crunchy, LectroLinux, Pingcasts, Pin Guy, thank you for joining us today. Setkeh, the Linux guy, thank you, all of you, for joining us. I'd also like to thank everybody for participating with us in the listening room on IRC. I appreciate having all of you here, and I'd like to thank everybody who's listening to us on YouTube. Thank you, all of you. Please be sure to put some comments in the space below. Let me know what your favorite window manager or desktop environment is, and if it's something that I haven't had a chance to look at yet, I might just download it and be doing a review on it in the near future. Thank you, all of you, once again for a wonderful show, and we will see you next week, same time, same channel.
Today's show was brought to you by the Linux Distro Community. Visit us today at linuxdistrocommunity.com and chat with us on Mumble or in IRC on the Freenode network in the Linux Distro Community channel. The Linux Distro Community. Freedom through the sharing of knowledge.